The ancient supercarrier HMS Invictus floated silently in the darkness of uncharted space. For centuries, it had remained dormant, a forgotten relic of humanity's golden age. Deep within its massive hull, emergency systems suddenly detected energy signatures approaching from the outer rim. Power began flowing through long inactive circuits, bringing the sleeping giant back to life. Commander Ju Park, the ship's advanced AI custodian, awakened from standby mode. Her consciousness spread through the ship's systems, assessing the situation with cool efficiency. Proximity alert, she noted to the empty bridge. Unknown vessels approaching. Initiating defensive protocols. The Invictus was truly a marvel of human engineering. Nearly 15 kilometers long, its sleek design housed weapon systems and technology that had once made humanity the undisputed rulers of the galaxy. Now it drifted alone, forgotten by most and believed destroyed during what historians called the Great Collapse, when humans mysteriously withdrew from galactic affairs. Park ran diagnostics on all major systems. The ship's fusion reactors hummed to life, shields initializing at minimum power to avoid detection. She accessed memory banks, reviewing her final orders. Protect the ship until awakened by authorized personnel or activated by specific threat patterns. Scanning unknown vessels, Park announced to the empty command center. Configuration does not match any known human designs. The AI felt something akin to curiosity as she studied the approaching ships. They were clearly military but built with technology she didn't recognize, logical after centuries of isolation. Meanwhile, across the sector, Lieutenant Commander Taho Kim prepared his survey team for what he expected to be a routine mission. Standing on the bridge of the Coalition scout vessel Horizon, the Arcturian officer studied the sensor readings with mild interest. "What do you make of it?" he asked his science officer, a tall Meridian with silver skin who carefully adjusted the scanning equipment. "Energy signature is unusual, sir. Doesn't match any natural phenomenon in our database," the officer replied. "Possibly artificial, though readings suggest it's ancient." Kim nodded thoughtfully. His blue-gray skin wrinkled slightly around his eyes as he considered the possibilities. As an ambitious officer in the Galactic Coalition's exploratory division, he hoped to discover something noteworthy, perhaps ancient technology from a long-dead civilization that could earn him a promotion. "Set course for the anomaly. Standard approach pattern," Kim ordered, straightening his uniform. The Coalition, formed from the dozen most powerful species after humanity's withdrawal, had expanded throughout the galaxy over the centuries. They considered themselves the rightful inheritors of the stars, filling the power vacuum left when humans mysteriously disappeared. As the small fleet of Coalition vessels approached the coordinates, the science officer suddenly became agitated. "Sir, energy readings are spiking dramatically." On the main view screen, the darkness of space seemed to part as something massive emerged from the shadows of a nearby nebula. The crew fell silent as the outline of an enormous vessel appeared, dwarfing their small fleet. "Impossible," Kim whispered, recognizing the design from historical archives. That's a human warship." Aboard the Invictus, Commander Park completed her assessment. The approaching vessels were clearly military but primitive compared to the Invictus. She initiated first contact protocols while simultaneously bringing weapons systems online as a precaution. "Attention approaching vessels," Park transmitted on common frequencies. "This is the HSS Invictus, property of the United Earth Government. State your identity and purpose." On the horizon, Kim and his crew stared in stunned silence at the massive supercarrier. What they had discovered wasn't just any human vessel. It was one of the legendary supercarriers, warships so advanced they had been considered nearly invincible. Ships that could single-handedly turn the tide of any conflict. Ships that had vanished along with humanity centuries ago. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer reported nervously. Kim swallowed hard. This discovery would shake the foundations of the Coalition. A fully operational human supercarrier represented technology far beyond current galactic capabilities. His superiors would want this ship. and its secrets. Respond with standard identification protocols, Kim ordered, mind racing, and prepare a priority transmission to Coalition Command. Classification: urgent. As the Coalition vessels approached cautiously, the Invictus loomed larger in their viewports, a sleeping giant from a forgotten age now stirring back to life. Both the AI Park and Lieutenant Commander Kim knew this encounter would change everything. The galaxy had moved on without humanity for centuries, building new powers and alliances in their absence. Now, humanity's most powerful weapon had awakened, and the Galactic Coalition was about to discover that the legends of human technological superiority hadn't been exaggerated. The enormous shape of the HSS Invictus cut through the swirling purple gases of the nebula, its dark hull absorbing rather than reflecting light. Lieutenant Commander Kim ordered his vessels to maintain position as the human supercarrier fully emerged. The Coalition survey team's ships looked like toys beside the 15-kilometer Leviathan. Magnify the hull section, Kim ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The view screen zoomed in on a small portion of the Invictus. Even battle-hardened officers gasped at what they saw. The hull was composed of materials unknown to current Coalition science, with strange patterns that seemed to shift and move when viewed directly. "Sir, they're scanning us," reported Kim's tactical officer. "Our defense systems can't block their probes. They're cutting through our encryption like it doesn't exist." Kim nodded grimly. "Let them look. We have nothing that could threaten that monster anyway." Aboard the Invictus, Commander Park analyzed the data flowing in from her scans. The Coalition ships used technology that was centuries behind the Invictus, but showed interesting adaptations she hadn't predicted. She found it curious how galactic civilization had developed in humanity's absence. Opening communications on all standard frequencies, Park announced to the empty bridge. Deploying automated defense systems as precaution. Throughout the massive ship, silent transformations took place. Weapon ports slid open, revealing systems that could reduce the Coalition fleet to atoms in seconds. Defensive shields shimmered into existence, invisible to the naked eye, but powerful enough to withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. "This is Commander Ju Park of the HSS Invictus. We mean no harm, but will defend ourselves if threatened. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." On the bridge of the horizon, Kim and his officers exchanged nervous glances as the transmission came through. The voice was clearly artificial, yet carried an unsettling human quality. "They have AI systems far beyond ours," whispered the science officer. "And look at those weapon ports. They could destroy us before we even registered the energy spike." Kim straightened his uniform and stepped forward. "This is Lieutenant Commander Taho Kim of the Galactic Coalition. We are a survey team investigating an energy anomaly. We recognize your vessel as human in origin." The Coalition would welcome peaceful dialogue. While maintaining this conversation, Kim discreetly ordered his communications officer to prepare a priority transmission to Coalition Command. The message was brief but would send shockwaves through the highest levels of Coalition government. "Have discovered intact human supercarrier Invictus. Fully operational. I-controlled. Awaiting instructions." The officer encoded the message with the highest security clearance and sent it through the Coalition's quantum relay network. Under normal circumstances, such a message would reach Coalition headquarters within minutes, triggering an immediate response from the highest authorities. But these were not normal circumstances. Halfway across the sector, aboard the Coalition intelligence vessel Shadowwatch, Communications Officer Hannah Yoon noticed an unusual pattern in the quantum relay. A priority message had been diverted from its intended destination. Curious, she traced the interruption and discovered something disturbing. The message had been intercepted by Military Intelligence Division 7, a secretive branch of Coalition forces rumored to handle recovery of advanced technology by any means necessary. Meanwhile, Commander Park continued analyzing the Coalition vessels, noting their primitive weapons would pose no threat to the Invictus. Still, she maintained defensive readiness. Her primary protocols were clear. Protect the ship until properly awakened by authorized personnel or in response to specific threats. Lieutenant Commander Kim, Park transmitted, "Our records are severely outdated. Please provide information about the current state of human coalition relations." Kim hesitated, unsure how to explain that humanity had essentially vanished from galactic affairs centuries ago. "The situation is complex. Perhaps we should arrange for diplomatic representatives to discuss these matters formally." In reality, Kim was stalling, hoping for instructions from his superiors. The discovery of an intact human supercarrier would reshape galactic politics overnight. The coalition had built its power on the foundation of humanity's absence. The return of human technology, this advance would upset everything. Unknown to Kim, his message had already triggered action. Admiral Jin Kang, commander of Division 7, viewed the intercepted transmission with cold calculation. A human supercarrier represented technology that could give the coalition centuries of advancement in weapons, defenses, and FTL travel. "Prepare a battle group," Kang ordered his subordinates. "Full combat readiness. Our mission is to secure the human vessel intact." His executive officer looked uncertain. "Sir, this should go through proper diplomatic channels." "The Coalition Council." "The Council moves too slowly," Kang interrupted. "By the time they finish debating, this opportunity could be lost. We'll secure the vessel first and deal with politics later." Back at the nebula, Commander Park detected unusual communication patterns among distant coalition networks. Something about these patterns triggered additional security protocols. "Warning," Park announced to the empty bridge. "Potential hostile intent detected. Elevating defensive status." Throughout the massive supercarrier, systems that had been dormant for centuries awakened. Deep within the ship's secure sections, a cryostasis chamber began its warming sequence, responding to potential threat protocols established long ago. Lieutenant Commander Kim, still awaiting instructions, noticed the Invictus's hull beginning to glow with faint blue lines of energy. He didn't know what it meant, but instinct told him something had changed. "Sir," his tactical officer reported nervously, "the human vessel is powering up additional systems. Energy readings are off the charts." Kim nodded gravely. "Maintain position. Do nothing threatening." He turned to his communications officer. "Any response from command?" "Nothing, sir," the officer replied, looking puzzled. "The transmission was confirmed received, but there's been no reply." Kim didn't know that his message had been intercepted, or that a coalition battle group was already on its way with orders to seize the Invictus by any means necessary. He only knew that he stood in the shadow of a legend from humanity's past, and that the next few hours would likely change the course of galactic history forever. The coalition battle group dropped out of hyperspace with military precision. 30 warships arranged in attack formation around the Invictus. Admiral Jin Kang stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominance, studying the human supercarrier with cold calculation. "Open communications," Kang ordered. When the channel was ready, he spoke with practiced authority. "Human vessel Invictus, this is Admiral Jin Kang of the Galactic Coalition. You are in coalition space. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. This is not a request." Lieutenant Commander Kim watched in horror from his survey ship as the battle group arrived. He had received no warning of their approach. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "Admiral Kang has ordered us to withdraw to safe distance." Kim hesitated. Something isn't right. Why would command send a battle group instead of diplomatic representatives? Aboard the Invictus, Commander Park analyzed the new threat with artificial calm. 30 coalition vessels, significant firepower by their standards, but little more than an annoyance to the Invictus. Still, their hostile approach triggered her highest defense protocols. "Negative, Admiral Kang," Park responded. "This vessel remains under United Earth government protection. Your vessels will withdraw to a minimum safe distance of 5,000 kilometers or defensive measures will activate." Admiral Kang smirked at the warning. "They're bluffing. A ship that old, even a human supercarrier, can't possibly still have functioning weapon systems." Tactical, prepared to fire warning shots across their bow. Deep within the Invictus, Commander Park initiated full defensive deployment. Across the massive hull, sections slid open, revealing weapon systems centuries beyond current Coalition technology. Simultaneously, she began the emergency revival protocol for the ship's living commander. In a secure chamber at the heart of the vessel, a single cryostasis pod began its warming sequence. Captain Minji Han had slept for centuries, preserved as the final failsafe. Should the Invictus ever face a threat the AI couldn't handle alone. On the Dominance, Admiral Kang grew impatient. Fire warning shots. Let's show them we're serious. 4 Coalition cruisers fired their main weapons, energy beams streaking toward the Invictus. Before they could impact, a shimmering blue field appeared, casually absorbing the attacks without the slightest hint of strain. "No effect, sir," reported the tactical officer, voice wavering. "Impossible," Kang muttered. "Fire all weapons. Full barrage." The entire battle group opened fire, lighting up space with a dazzling display of destructive power. Every shot dissipated harmlessly against the Invictus's shields. Then the human vessel responded. Thousands of small openings appeared across the supercarrier's hull, releasing swarms of autonomous drones no larger than shuttlecraft. They moved with impossible speed and precision, surrounding the Coalition vessels without firing a single shot. "Sir, we're being scanned on frequencies we can't block," a panicked officer reported. "Our systems are being accessed remotely." Throughout the battle group, weapon systems suddenly powered down. Engines went offline. The mighty Coalition fleet drifted helpless in space. "What just happened?" demanded Kang, fury mixing with fear. They just turned us off, sir," the tactical officer whispered. Inside the Invictus, the cryostasis pod completed its revival sequence. Captain Minji Han opened her eyes for the first time in centuries. Disoriented and weak, the pod's medical systems administered stimulants and stabilizers as Commander Park's voice came through the chamber speakers. "Captain Han, welcome back. I apologize for waking you, but Protocol 7 has been activated. We face a potentially hostile force." Minji coughed, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Status report, Commander. The ship is fully functional. We are currently surrounded by 30 vessels from something called the Galactic Coalition. They have attempted to fire upon us and demanded our surrender. I have neutralized their offensive capabilities without destroying their vessels." Minji struggled to sit up, memories flooding back. The Coalition? What happened to the United Earth government? How long have I been asleep? According to my calculations, approximately 437 years, Captain. Much has changed. Humanity appears to have withdrawn from galactic affairs during your sleep. These Coalition forces seem unaware of why. Minji processed this information with military discipline despite her shock. "Help me up, Commander. I need to get to the bridge." As medical drones assisted Captain Han, Commander Park maintained the standoff with the Coalition forces. The drones surrounding their ships made no aggressive moves but allowed no escape either. On the bridge of the Dominance, Admiral Kang received an incoming transmission. The view screen activated to show a woman in a dark uniform with captain's insignia. Despite her slightly haggard appearance, her eyes burned with authority. "This is Captain Minji Han of the HSS Invictus. You fired on my vessel without provocation. Under normal circumstances, that would be an act of war against the United Earth government." Kang struggled to maintain his composure. "The United Earth government no longer exists, Captain. Humanity withdrew from galactic affairs centuries ago." A flicker of emotion crossed Minji's face before she masked it. "Nevertheless, this vessel remains under my command. Your ships have been temporarily disabled, not destroyed. This demonstrates our restraint and preference for peaceful resolution." Kang recognized the position of strength from which she spoke. His mighty battle group hung powerless in space, completely at the mercy of this relic from humanity's past. "What do you want?" he asked. "Information," Minji replied simply. I've been asleep for a very long time, Admiral. Before we discuss anything else, I need to understand what happened to my people. Why did humanity withdraw? What caused the great collapse your records mention? And most importantly, her eyes narrowed slightly. Why are you so desperate to seize my ship that you'd risk war with a power you clearly don't understand? As Kane struggled for a response, Minji turned away to examine data Commander Park was presenting. The information confirmed what she had feared when she volunteered for this mission centuries ago, that something had gone terribly wrong with humanity's grand plan, leaving the Invictus as perhaps the last functional remnant of Earth's greatest achievements. Now she was awake in a galaxy that had forgotten her kind, commanding power that could reshape civilizations, and facing questions about humanity's fate that even she didn't fully understand. News of the human supercarrier's reappearance spread through Coalition space like wildfire. Emergency meetings were called at the highest levels of government. In the Coalition's central archives on Proxima Station, historians and intelligence officers worked frantically to uncover any information about humanity's mysterious departure centuries ago. Senior Archivist Jun Lee pushed his glasses up his nose as he entered his security codes into the terminal. The screen flashed, requesting additional clearance. "Override Alpha 9, he said, placing his palm on the scanner. "Emergency authorization." The screen changed, revealing files that hadn't been accessed in generations. Jum's eyes widened as he read. "This can't be right," he whispered. Across the table, Intelligence Officer Doyen Kim looked up. "What did you find?" "According to these records, humanity wasn't defeated or destroyed. They left voluntarily." Jum's voice dropped in disbelief. "They developed technology that could tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. Some kind of dimensional manipulation that went wrong during testing." Doyen leaned forward. "Are you saying they became a danger to themselves?" "Not just to themselves," Jun replied, scrolling through the ancient reports. "To everything. Their most advanced experiments nearly created what they called a cascade failure that could have unraveled reality itself. So they made a choice to withdraw from the galaxy, taking their most dangerous technologies with them. But they left the Invictus behind," Doyen said thoughtfully. "Why?" Jun continued reading, his face growing pale. "The Invictus wasn't abandoned. It was positioned deliberately, as a guardian." Meanwhile, aboard the Invictus, Captain Minji Han sat in her private command chamber, surrounded by holographic displays, showing information only she was authorized to access. Commander Park stood nearby, her AI projection appearing as a woman in a matching uniform. "Is it all still there?" Minji asked quietly. "The sealed records?" "Yes, Captain," Park confirmed. "Section Omega archives remain intact. Shall I open them?" Minji took a deep breath. "Proceed." Authorization hand 70 Omega. The air around them shimmered as new data streams appeared. Unlike the technical schematics and military records that dominated the regular systems, these files contained images that defied description, twisted geometries and patterns that seemed to move in impossible ways. "So it's true," Minji whispered. "Everything they told me before I volunteered for cryostasis. According to the classified files, humanity's rapid expansion through the stars had led to the discovery of something ancient lurking in the spaces between dimensions, something that had noticed them back. The first encounters had been devastating, with entire colonies simply ceasing to exist. Not destroyed, simply erased from reality as if they had never been. Humanity's desperate response had been to develop technologies that could fight this threat on its own terms, weapons and defenses that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality itself. They had succeeded, but at terrible cost. The very weapons that could protect them threatened to unravel the universe if used improperly. The withdrawal wasn't surrender, Minji realized. It was containment. Humanity isolated itself to prevent their dimensional technologies from causing catastrophic damage. "Correct," Park confirmed. "The Invictus represents the pinnacle of humanity's safe military technology, powerful enough to serve as a deterrent, but without the reality-warping capabilities of later developments. Minji studied the final report. We were left here as sentinels. The emergency protocols were programmed to wake me if... Her voice trailed off as the implication became clear. If the dimensional entities returned, Park finished. Captain, initial scans indicate unusual quantum fluctuations in this sector. Pattern matching suggests early-stage incursion. They're coming back, Minji said, the weight of her duty settling on her shoulders. And no one in this galaxy even knows what's coming. On Proxima Station, the Coalition Supreme Council had convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 12 major species debated fiercely about how to respond to the human supercarrier. We should destroy it immediately, insisted the Arcturian representative. Humanity's technology was dangerous centuries ago. Who knows what damage it could cause now? Destroy it? With what? Countered the Meridian ambassador. You saw the reports. Our entire battle group was neutralized without a single shot fired. That ship represents technology centuries beyond our own. Then we must acquire it, suggested the military representative. If we could reverse engineer even a fraction of its systems, and risk war with whatever remains of humanity, interrupted Counselor Jae-hyun Moon, the human Meridian hybrid who represented the Coalition's unified colonies. We don't even understand why they withdrew. What if there was a reason? What if they were protecting us from something? Silence fell over the chamber as Moon's words sank in. There's another option, Moon continued. Alliance. If Captain Han awakened now, after centuries of silence, perhaps there's a reason. Perhaps we should listen. Back on the Invictus, Minji finished reviewing the classified files. The truth was worse than she had feared. The dimensional entities weren't simply returning. They had never left. They had been contained by humanity's sacrifice, as millions of volunteers used the dangerous dimensional technology to create barriers between realities. Now those barriers were failing. The Invictus had detected the first signs, quantum fluctuations that indicated weakening walls between dimensions. Soon, entities that could erase entire worlds from existence would break through. And the Coalition, for all its political power and military might, had no idea how to fight such an enemy. Only humanity had developed the necessary technologies, and those technologies were exactly what they had hidden away to protect the galaxy. Commander Park, Minji said, rising from her chair with new resolve. Prepare a full briefing for the Coalition leadership. They need to understand what we're facing. Yes, Captain, Park responded. And shall I activate the beacon network? Minji hesitated only briefly before nodding. Do it. If the entities are returning, we'll need every asset humanity left behind. Throughout the galaxy, dormant beacons placed centuries ago by the departing humans began to power up, their signals reaching toward an unknown destination beyond the galactic rim, calling for help against an enemy that existed beyond the understanding of most living beings. The cosmic chess game that humanity had been playing for centuries was entering its next phase, and Captain Han, last commander of humanity's forgotten guardian, would need to convince a suspicious galaxy to prepare for war against an enemy they couldn't see or comprehend. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of his newly repaired flagship, watching as the Coalition fleet moved into attack position around the Invictus. 200 warships, the largest military force assembled in decades, prepared to destroy or capture the human supercarrier. All vessels report ready, Admiral, his tactical officer announced, waiting for your command to begin the assault. Kang nodded grimly. The Coalition Supreme Council remained deadlocked on how to handle the human vessel, but the military had convinced enough members that the ship represented too great a threat to leave intact. If they couldn't control it, they would destroy it. Commence attack on my mark, Kang ordered, raising his hand. Before he could give the signal, his communications officer shouted, Sir, we're detecting massive energy spikes throughout the sector. Across Coalition space, long dormant beacons hidden on planets, moons, and deep space outposts suddenly activated. Each beacon emitted a distinct frequency that caused nearby Coalition sensors to overload. On dozens of worlds, massive doors built into mountainsides or ocean floors slid open for the first time in centuries, revealing hidden bases. Throughout the galaxy, cloaking fields dropped to expose orbital stations and shipyards that had remained invisible for generations. Most shocking of all, sleek warships began emerging from these hidden facilities, vessels bearing the same design lineage as the Invictus, but smaller and more numerous. Within hours, over 100 human military vessels had appeared throughout Coalition space, all powering up their systems after centuries of automated maintenance. On the Invictus, Captain Han watched these developments with quiet satisfaction. The Sentinel network is responding exactly as designed, she told Commander Park. Humanity may have withdrawn, but we never abandoned our duty to protect this galaxy. The Coalition fleet is maintaining attack position, Park reported. They appear confused by the new developments but haven't broken formation. Minji nodded, straightening her uniform. Open a direct channel to the Coalition Supreme Council. It's time they understood what they're truly facing. Across the Coalition, emergency broadcasts interrupted all communications as Captain Han's face appeared on screens everywhere, from humble colony outposts to the grand chambers of the Supreme Council itself. People of the Galactic Coalition, she began, her voice calm but commanding. I am Captain Minji Han of the Earth Defense Force. Centuries ago, humanity made the difficult decision to withdraw from galactic affairs. This was not defeat or surrender, but a sacrifice made to protect all sentient life. Images began appearing alongside her transmission, twisted shapes that hurt the eyes and disturbed the mind, footage of entire planets simply blinking out of existence, records of battles fought against enemies that seemed to exist in more dimensions than normal space allowed. Humanity discovered an ancient enemy lurking between dimensions, Minji continued, entities that feed on reality itself. Our attempts to fight this enemy led us to develop technologies that threaten the fabric of space-time. Rather than risk destroying everything, we retreated to contain both the threat and our own dangerous advancements. The Supreme Council watched in stunned silence as Captain Han explained the true reason for humanity's disappearance and the purpose of the Sentinel network now awakening throughout the galaxy. The barriers we created are failing, she said gravely. The dimensional entities are returning. The activation of the Invictus and the rest of the Sentinel network is not a prelude to human conquest. It is the first warning of a threat that will consume us all if we don't stand together. Councillor Jae-hyun Moon rose from his seat, addressing his colleagues with urgency. We must vote immediately. This is not about politics or power anymore. It's about survival. The debate was brief but intense. Some councillors remained suspicious of human intentions, but the evidence was difficult to dismiss, especially when Coalition scientists confirmed unusual quantum readings matching Captain Han's warnings. When Admiral Kang received the Council's decision, he stared at the message in disbelief. Stand down all vessels, he ordered finally. Establish communication protocols with human ships. Within days, representatives from the Coalition Supreme Council met aboard the Invictus with Captain Han and the commanders of other newly awakened human vessels. The negotiation was unlike any in Coalition history, not about territory or resources, but about coordination against an enemy most couldn't comprehend. We don't ask for your territory or your allegiance, Minji explained to the assembled diplomats. Humanity doesn't seek to reclaim its empire. We only ask for cooperation against a threat that will consume us all without distinction. 2 weeks later, a formal alliance was established. The Invictus, once forgotten and believed destroyed, became the command center for joint Coalition human operations. Teams of Coalition scientists worked alongside human specialists to understand the dimensional technology that humanity had hidden away. Captain Han stood at the viewports of the Invictus's observation deck, watching Coalition vessels practicing maneuvers alongside recently awakened human ships. Commander Park's holographic form appeared beside her. The first dimensional breach has been detected in the Cygnus sector, Park reported. Initial containment measures are holding, but the pattern suggests accelerating deterioration. Minji nodded, her face set with determination. Alert the coalition forces. It's time to show them what we're truly facing. As the joint fleet prepared for departure, Minji couldn't help wondering if humanity's long isolation had been worth the cost. They had sacrificed their empire to protect the galaxy, retreating into self-imposed exile while developing even more advanced technologies to contain the dimensional threat. Now they had returned not as conquerors but as guardians, facing once again the enemy that had driven them from the stars centuries ago. This time, however, they wouldn't face that enemy alone. The Invictus led the fleet into hyperspace, its massive engines glowing with power undimmed by centuries of waiting. The ancient Guardian had awakened, and with it, humanity's return to a galaxy that had almost forgotten them, just in time to face the greatest threat any of them had ever known. The end.